Is eliminating the curriculum director position based upon the Board of Ed discussion last week, and that's $145,000. And there's also unemployment on the reduction of 3 positions and reassignment of 2 teachers, so that's $25,000. So those are the subtractions of the savings. And then the subcommittee is recommending adding a hall monitor at the elementary school, since we have a hall monitor at the middle and the high. Increasing the textbook placeholder from $25,000 to $60,000. Increasing legal fees from $25,000 to $35,000. I assume that's because of contracts that will be negotiated. Am I right?
Contracts.
And others. Curriculum writing support. This would be my first question right off the bat. Is Learn is quoting $750 to $1,200 a day, and
Precious signed, got back to us, and they charge $1,000 a day.
And how many people is that for?
Per person.
Per person. Interesting. And how many days? It says here 150 days. Where did that come from?
We had started at 180 days, figured that if it was a person that came on board for a year, they would work 180 days. And then as we tried to shave the budget back, we thought we could certainly do it for the days, make it even 180 days.
What kind of, I mean,
Those were,
I think that's what's involved.
yeah.
And why it's necessary, especially since they don't know our curriculum.
based on the board discussion last meeting, the board expressed interest in having someone come in as a consultant for a 1-year person to support curriculum writing, to work with teacher teams, to work with committees, to provide that K-12 alignment, pretty much boots on the ground, getting to know the district, and working side by side with not only the writing of it, but overseeing the initial implementation and revision. And so we looked at, we tried to find a cost that would capture what we would need to fund a 1-year position. And as I said, we scaled back, made it less than a year, but given the amount of work that needs to be done and the amount of attention, we didn't want to scale it too back so that we would have money to support that work. The committee felt that it was really a priority to support curriculum and get it to a point where we had a viable curriculum, particularly with the NEAS study coming up and reaccreditation. It's critical that we have that in place.
It says here the work would begin from the ground up.
This is
Hasn't a lot been done this year?
we've done quite a bit. We have, but this language just came from Learn's response back to us, saying that they felt that it was really important. It wasn't as though someone could come in and sit in a room and write the curriculum, that it was absolutely critical for teachers to be involved throughout the whole process, and that it would be a turnkey curriculum model similar to what we've done now. So they espoused the same model that we had implemented, and they would continue with that strategy.
And explain to us, Mary Beth, how does this interface with the District Curriculum Council, which we had years ago, which was very effective? It was organized by the administration, and there were teachers, administrators. I do not believe there were any board members, but we certainly could have a board member or two. How would that interface, this consultant interface with the District Curriculum Council and our subcommittee on curriculum? How do you see that playing out?
So not having been here when your curriculum council was in place,
Yeah.
I would see that the role of the curriculum council would be kind of the body that would represent the different departments, the different grade levels, and certainly be part of that work with the consultant in that putting things together, and then they would bring that back to their departments, their grade levels. There'd be some implementation phase, coming back with feedback, how did that work, what worked, what didn't work. The consultant would serve as a consultant consultant and, provides the expertise needed to guide and facilitate that process. And they would be the one that would really have the eye on the K-12 continuum. So the people on the council will represent specific grade levels and content areas, but we would want to make sure that we had that vertical alignment as well as the horizontal.
Okay. And then how would that interface with our board subcommittee that we just formed on curriculum?
I think that certainly that person would attend those meetings, help to be a liaison, so there'd be feedback loops.
And report back to the board.
Report back to the board and then bring back to that committee, any feedback from the board or the subcommittee.
Has there been any movement toward creating that curriculum council once again?
It was on the agenda for the PNN meeting, and it is on the agenda for tomorrow's curriculum committee.
Because it was very, that's how we got our curriculum done. Lori?
I have a question. If there's one person, they're the consultant for K through 12, are they math? Are they language arts? Are they just wizards that do all curriculum? I mean, how does that work?
The person in this position, we would really want expertise in terms of curriculum processes and structures and understanding of what curriculum is and what needs to be part of that process. And then certainly the individual teachers would bring content special expertise to the table. So it would be a partnership in terms of developing curriculum from a structural process perspective, and then individual teachers bringing the content expertise.
So the content and expertise will be done by the teachers anyway.
Sure.
And the process of the curriculum consultant, there's no, it's just a lot of money for somebody to say, here's the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can we bring in learn into the curriculum? Maybe they can ask some tough questions on the rate and find out more in detail. I haven't seen the quote yet, but it'd be interesting. What are they really outlining? Maybe we don't leave as much as what they quoted us. Maybe they're over quoting us, but not knowing what the details are.
That's high. But then you said correct or aces or correct.
Well,
They're about the same.
It's one person's salary.
But that's high, Lori.
I agree. Well, I'm not
Right.
sure the person is.
The understanding of this, the number here is it's not a guaranteed amount to be spent, but it's sort of a placeholder of what would be needed based upon the needs of the
So what you're saying is that if it only comes once a week, it goes way down. Maybe that's all we need to see them, or once a month. But once the
Framework.
the language arts people, when they said, okay, here's what we got, you want to look it over and see if we got any problems with it? But it would always be the same person.
Well, and what's not included in here is that Learn speculated that this would be a 3-year process. So just so you know, they would.
Of course they would. That was my question in the beginning about this person is a miracle worker with language arts, math, and all the.
Yeah. The other thing that I have an issue with, quite frankly, is the cover letter here from Mrs. Gianta stating that we have an absence of board goals. Our goals are stated at the top of all of our agendas. And long-term planning, I mean, that's a slap to our long-range planning committee. So that last sentence is for me, inaccurate. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I can't believe she feels that way.
Well, I'd like to point out that Tracy's on the long-range planning committee,
That's right.
so
I guess she doesn't feel it.
we can talk about it next time.
Yeah. Enlighten her.
Yeah.
Show her copies of our goals as well.
Well, if I may add, and I don't mean to speak for Tracy, but I can only guess during our discussions in the subcommittee, it was a question of the teachers' positions, possibility of transferring one of the positions that we want to eliminate into a world language position in the middle school. And it was brought up that there's not the structure or the plan put in place for that, or that that was not assigned to as a goal towards the superintendent to have that in place. So I'm not sure, I know that was what we discussed and I was brought up. I don't know if that's what she meant or not, but that was part of the discussions we had at our last,
Our goals are overarching. I wish I had a copy of my agenda from one of the previous meetings. But we hammered them out a couple of years ago, and they were, I mean, they're not that specific. They're overarching in terms of our kids will be, trained to be lifelong learners, that they'll offer rigorous curriculum, things of that nature. Going back to the recommendations from the Finance Subcommittee, you've heard my questions and my thoughts. I expected to see the increase in the alternative high school because East Hampton has been carrying more of the load. But if we did not have that program, we could easily be spending $200,000 to $300,000 on other placements. But I want to hear from other people. Any other comments, questions regarding the recommended cuts or additions?
I just, for the subtractions, the unemployment, don't believe the net change reduction is one teaching position. I believe that as we have it, it's 2 teaching positions that are being cut, or only one actual person that's being elected, correct?
So that's why it's not as great, but no.
Right, but it's 2 positions, one person.
Because of the creation of another position.
So it's the 4th grade and the 5th grade teacher positions are being cut. One of those teachers are becoming something different.
Math interventions.
They're becoming math interventions. The other, so we have one teacher cut. So just out of curiosity, it's not my business, but there's only, and I'm not for it anyway, but there's only a $25,000 savings. If you were going to cut a whole teacher, wouldn't there be
Greater savings.
a greater savings?
That's unemployment.
That's just the unemployment.
Oh, okay. All right.
And to be clear, municipalities and Board of Education, we don't pay unemployment insurance, so when someone is laid off, we pay the entire bill. It's not like a business. So another teacher has certification for a retiring position as well. So that's why the unemployment, we're realizing greater savings. We can reduce what we originally budgeted, thinking that there'd be 3 positions.
Yes, I would just follow up with the same question that I had at last board meeting. As we started with this whole learn business and the cost of writing the curriculum, what happened to considering using those teachers in curriculum writing for the next year?
I could just tell you this part that we talked about was empowering the teachers and those groups to write the curriculum, and then just have that person from Learn kind of facilitate after the teacher, but back in the teacher's hands to get it done. So that's what our goal was trying to be, is let the teachers spearhead it, and just somebody could make sure, as Mary Beth said, they hit all the points in the curriculum.
Right, so it's clearer to say that 112 is a placeholder, and that person from Learn may only come once a month or once every week or twice a week, depending on what it seems to be. Is that correct?
That would be what we want to do.
And it's safe to say we just discounted the fact that we don't need them to write curriculum. Is that what we said?
Yeah.
The one that we're laying off, instead of using them to write curriculum, is just not, we're not interested in that. Is that what we're saying? That's what I asked in the last meeting.
Oh, you wanted to.
Well, my point was, last meeting was, instead of laying people off, when we had such a big job to complete, that at least for the next year, maybe we got to revisit this next year. I don't know the retirement schedule of the school and stuff like that. But I recommended that why don't we use those teachers that we're laying off to help us get our curriculum written, such a arduous task in front of us.
Do you think that person would be qualified to be able to come? If
completely wrong, then tell me and I'll go back to reading the budget. But I can handle being told I'm wrong. That's my question, and I don't think I've got an answer.
Well, I would venture to say, Sean, that it's not likely, we don't know of anyone within our teaching population now that would have the expertise and experience to facilitate that process. Certainly teachers all bring something to the table in terms of supporting curriculum development, but in terms of having the qualifications and expertise to take on that, that it really is an area of specialty that most teachers don't have to that degree. So while they are engaged in the process and participants, I'm not sure we would have anyone that would have the qualifications to take that.
No, I'm not suggesting they're the ones that oversee the curriculum, like this learn person would be. But certainly they're qualified to write curriculum because we're using our teachers to write our curriculum anyway, aren't we?
Different teachers write it in different subjects.
I understand. So
So what you're asking is, will the board be
So
going
that-
in the budget to maintain another average salary benefit for a teacher to help the teachers who are doing that work?
Correct.
Then it becomes a budgetary question, because we will have teachers from every grade level and department to support that work. To have an additional teacher would be wonderful to have. I'm not sure that the district or the town can afford to have an extra teacher to help with that work.
I can't see that they would be experts in both language arts and math and.
But the curriculum for the middle school has to be written anyway, for the fourth grade, right?
Right, but it's got language arts.
Yes, but they're all those teachers are already writing all the curriculum for the fourth grade. The fourth grade teachers are writing the curriculum for the fourth grade, correct? Yes. Well, we're discussing laying off of a fourth grade teacher. So if a teacher is currently teaching the fourth grade, then they're certainly qualified to write fourth grade curriculum. Right?
So fourth grade teachers teach math, language arts, and social studies.
Well, they teach it all.
Okay.
And so the remaining fourth grade teachers would share that responsibility for the fourth grade stuff. And if I understand you right, Sean, you have to keep a fifth, fourth grade teacher to help them do that. That would be a budgetary decision that the board would consider.
Well, I won't admit it's been considered since our last meeting because that's what I asked then. So,
If you did that, then you create a position for fifth grade, sixth grade, for first grade, second grade, third, you're gonna then end up having lots of positions.
well, my point was, instead of laying anybody off right now, where we have a situation where we can't get caught up, and we have to spend either $145,000 or $112,000, we have people here that perhaps can be designated curriculum writers. I know of a school district, West Hartford, I'm told, that they gave somebody the year off in each subject to concentrate on curriculum. Now, I'm not suggesting we can do that because we're not the same size district, but the theory is the same. We have a teacher that can write curriculum for the year.
If that
That's my
person
thought.
could, if you're assuming that person could go in instead of the learner.
No.
Same thing.
You still need somebody to oversee it, but you have that regardless.
Just on behalf of the committee, no, we did not accept that logic. We chose not to go this way, that, because we didn't see the benefits of the district in that particular item. So it wasn't that it was not considered, it just was not included.
Now, in terms of learn, we wouldn't be locked into learn, or we wouldn't be locked into credit. It could be anyone that we happen to find was an expert in curriculum writing, and there are plenty of them out there. But I think that's high. But then again, I worked at Learn. I can't imagine them quoting something like this. That person's got to have an awful lot of skills to do to be paid that kind of money. Any other comments on the addition additions or deletions.
I can't believe the superintendent got it close to be correct, in 1,000. And that was flat rate, it wasn't 750 to 12, it was, we charged $1,000 a day, so 750 to 12 for the rest is not out of the question. And I think what we tried to do in putting this together is listen to what the board said at its hearing, meeting on the budget, and we've incorporated that in here. I mean, it's just that simple. This is what people said they wanted to see, a majority of this board. And the number that you see there, the 19, is exactly what it comes to. Putting in what you wanted and taking out what you said you wanted to take out.
Cindy, how much is that over last year's? I'm going to say, I'm guessing 500, 600,000?
Over last year's increase?
Yeah. I see 3.7%, so I'm guessing it's between 500 and 600,000.
It's 700,138 is the increase as it stands right now.
The 19,284?
No, the 19,467, we have to go all the way to the bottom once all this
That's
changes.
over 700,000?
Yes,
Give me the exact amount.
700,138. We're 3.7%.
Okay.
It wasn't 1870.
Correct.
Any other questions on this before we answer or ask any questions on the budget in general?
Well,
Okay.
I think I would just remind everyone that once we vote, this is our budget. The superintendent's in there. So it's our budget, and it's what we have to present, and if you will, defend to the community in terms of meeting the needs we identify, serving the best interest of the children of the East Haddam Public Schools. So I would just keep that in mind. That's how you have to think. This is ours.
Okay. We went through the budget page by page last week. If you have a question on a particular item, if it's a generic question, fine. If it's a specific question with a page that we can identify, if you could give us the page number so we can look at it. One of my questions was about the math interventionist. Where would the person be? Which school? It's answered for me. High school. That's what I've been advocating now for 5 years. I'm delighted to see that. Anybody? We can start anywhere you want to start. Yes.
Okay. Couple of questions. Since when it becomes our budget, we're responsible with what's in it. I go to the elementary narrative page, and it talks about all connected state terms of education, educational mandates, including Common Core standards. So we talk about standards once in the middle school narrative page, MS1. It talks about standard-based report grade practices in grade 4. Then moving on to the high school narrative. 6 times they mention standard-based approach / education or standard. And then I'm reading down, and it says program initiatives, and this is all for next year. Implementation of a systematic curriculum management cycle, including, the bullet point says, standard-based grading practices. Dr. Isabella, can you kind of enlighten what that means? And is this in a direction of standard-based grading for 124?
This is not talking about standards-based report cards.
Or what would that then be, standard-based grading practice? Because that can include report cards and all the time.
When we talked about this year having, that we would align our instruction curriculum to the standards, and that we would provide feedback to students relative to their progress toward the standards. But I've made it very clear that there's not any consideration at this point for a standards-based report card at the high school. As long as the colleges and universities require GPA and letter grades, we will have letter grades at the high school. At the same time, we will provide feedback to students on how they're doing relative to the standards, because as the state assessments move in that direction, we're going to want to make sure that students have, feedback. The state, as part of the whole new assessment, has purchased the whole suite, so we will be having access to interim and benchmark assessments based on the standards, and we will provide that to students. So it would be, not in competition with the letter grades, the traditional grading system that we're technically using.
Okay. I get a little, just myself, a little nervous about all those words. So I will make a motion at some point to remove the program narrative out of the budget. So when I vote for the budget, I'm not voting for anything that's,
Just that.
just that.
Let me ask you a question, Gary Beth. When the administrators put the narratives together, did we ever have narratives before? We did. Is this narrative what's currently happening, or is it looking to next year, since the budget is looking at next year?
I think it's a combination of what we currently have in terms of, where we're moving towards. But by and large, this is really our reflects the philosophy and value.
Any other questions on the narratives? We can get the narratives out of the way? Yes.
I think the narrative, particularly at the high school, is broad-based enough to encompass many different focuses tonight.
Anybody else?
I'll hold my comments until the motion is made.
Just, it was new to me in the last meeting, the SRBI process. It seems to be in the different narratives, one is K through here, the other is 4 through 8. It seems to be a little inconsistent. When we talked about it kind of falling through the cracks at the moment. Where is it going to be implemented? My understanding was it wasn't something that took place in the special education department, but in the special education narrative, it does say it's taking place.
Well, standards-based, interventions, it's K-12, Sean, SRBI, scientific research-based interventions.
Mm-hmm.
So on a continuum, special ed would be your top-tier kids. So we have some students, approximately 80% of our students, who are successful in the core curriculum. And the rigorous core curriculum, they're successful without interventions. They would be successful with the differentiated instruction that teachers do as a matter of course. Then we have, a population of students who need a little bit of supportive help. So that might be in terms of reading resource help or math resource help, or some additional intervention over beyond what the classroom teacher provides. And then we have a top tier of about 5% of students who require some real intense intervention, which would include special education, 504 plans. So it does encompass regular and special ed and K-12. So in the middle school, they talk about 4-8 because that's what they're responsible. In the high school, they refer to, it being K-12 process. In the elementary and middle schools, we have a pretty high degree of implementation of SRBI. At the high school, they've got structures and protocols, but my understanding is that it is really not implemented because the teachers do not have the time to meet and to develop the plans for students. And it's something that we've been trying very hard to do. One of the reasons the schedule change was proposed was so that we could build in time within the contractual day where teachers could meet with special ed teachers, interventionists, and team members to create intervention plans for those students who need it.
Is SRBI a program schools enter? Is it voluntary, schools can choose to do it or not to do?
No, it's It is a law that we are required to provide SRBI, and at this point, we are not in compliance at the high school.
Thank you.
So did I understand you to say that if there's a special ed child, there isn't a meeting to which all his teachers come?
For special ed, yes, there are planning and placement team meetings, and that is very much in place and implemented with fidelity. We have a very strong special ed program. But even within special ed, that is the top tier. For other students who don't qualify for special ed, there should be something in place that's developmentally appropriate and interventions provided to help students be successful without having to replace the special ed program.
If I can ask one more question, just having dawned on me. If SRBI were in place at the high school, would a math interventionist be necessary?
A math intervention would be a key person to support SRBI in the high school, similar to what the math resource person in the middle school is providing.
Question, yes?
I have a question on the elementary school narrative.
Narratives, okay.
ES3.
Elementary. What page?
ES3. It says
Yes.
ES3, so. And it says smart boards are located in all grade level classrooms. And, I mean, I've toured the school, I believe there's at least five classrooms that don't have smart boards. I would like to know if they're wanted, if they're needed, are we budgeting for them?
There are additional smart boards in the elementary school budget, and certainly we are aware that there are a couple classes with the art teacher and others that have been asking for them, and the plan is to get smart boards for those teachers.
So we're going to, when it says smart boards are located in all grade level classrooms, that means all the classrooms are going to have smart boards.
That means K1, 2, 3, when we say grade level.
I'm referring to that.
But that's what that means. It means, Joanne can answer, but it means K1, 2, 3.
Because it says grade level, so it's in all K1, 2, and 3 classrooms.
Okay.
You're in there.
And the other classrooms that currently don't have them, they're going to be receiving them?
As Dr. Bell said, that, the art classroom, the music classroom, they are asking for them. So that's what we're budgeting.
Is anyone being left out that would like one? I'm just curious.
How about sped, Joanne, because that was an issue last year.
In Doreen's classroom, where that was an issue, in Doreen's classroom, there is one. In her classroom, it was divided, the doors are open, there is one in there.
What would
And she
happen if
needs
you
that.
had to create two spaces out of that again? When we had money to put one in both halves?
We would have to put it in the other half.
So we don't
There
have
isn't a plan for that right now because there isn't a need to put that wall up anymore.
But if we did, you would request something like that for the other half?
Possibly.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm happy to hear that they're expanding the use of that. Thank you.
Especially for the specialists. Me too. All right. Anyone else?
Okay. We're still talking about narratives?
We don't have to. We can go to something else.
Okay, so next we'll go to talking about special education. I was just hoping for, let's see if we go to special education, page SB7.
SB7?
So special education is budgeted for equipment, non-instructional equipment for $4,000.
Where are you? What line item is that?
Is that's 730.
730?
In which budget?
Special ed,
But it
page
is
SC7.
it the director's office you're asking about?
Director's office, equipment, non-instructional.
Yeah, it says it's 4,025. I was just curious of what equipment that would be.
I'm having trouble following. 4,000? Which line is that? That one? What is that? Okay, okay. I'm talking this. I'm asking the same thing because I can't figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay, what is that? Non-instructional equipment, Director's Office, $4,025.
Is to purchase an additional fireproof file cabinet from Stone Grounds.
It's very common that we have fireproof file cabinets. God forbid we ever have a fire, they would hopefully remain intact. If you don't, you run the risk of losing all those files, those hard copies. That's what that is.
And on the same page, what is the services that we are not purchasing this year for the $10,000? 300, same page.
Are you at psychological?
SE purchase, yeah, it's purchase.
You, and Nan had asked about that last time. I think it's more in how we allocated a grant this year than anything else. The services will be provided. We just checked last year.
You're on testing and that?
I think it's on 2140.
2140, right.
Sometimes it's in how we allocate a grant.
I have such trouble following these lines. I can see it now. I don't know what it is. I have trouble following the lines.
In all honesty, I believe that's how we allocated the grant, because some things come directly through our special programs and some are through the operating budget. I don't think we're lacking the services. I think it's just the grant allocation.
Cindy, can you have David email, is it Sean?
Yeah.
Could you have him email Sean tomorrow and ask him about that, so he's clear on that?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I have a question. In the high school, page 7, HS7,
HS7, hold on a second.
towards the bottom under dues and fees for 15,651.
HS7,
That is a roll-up of all of the dues and fees for the school.
Well, I would appreciate seeing the breakdown of that. I'm curious as to what the board is confused on, if the school pays 50,000 what.
If you go to, let me just, go to the book. You have, under dues and fees, you have $26.65 for athletics. Student activities is $352.
when you say athletics, do you mean CIAC membership?
Things that cover that, I can go pull them each individually. And one of the reasons that's a little, that there's money in there too, is that's where we've allocated the funding, I believe.
That's scary.
Really, that's what I was initially thinking.
Steve, can you shed any light on that?
They're right in line with what those fees are. I mean, CIAC fees, coaching, organizations and the like. I don't have a line item in front of me.
You're talking atomic, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, that could be one of them.
And for a math membership?
I would speculate CIAC is probably $5,000 to $6,000. Also, you're putting in there the 2,500 plus for NEASC. So right there, you're close to 10K. Then you have to pay your shoreline dues, your very athletic association dues, and this and that. I mean, that is a number that is not out of line at all. I will tell you that. Just just haven't had to pay those, you look at those.
It actually looks like it went down a little bit. Not very much, but down a little bit. Could you,
Most of it is in the principal's office, and there's membership to NEASC, CIAC, Shoreline Principals Association, my paper's cut off, but it's a whole list of memberships. It's the same membership list as last year, that the principal's office has for annual membership dues and fees.
is that adequate, or do you want a breakdown further?
The Shoreline Principals Association,
Yeah.
is that the same?
It's an athletic
No, it's
association.
association.
That's probably over $1,000 a year by now.
It's like
1,300.
I knew it was going over 1,000.
Thank you.
Bill knows for one for all those. Anybody else?
What's the thought process behind the, going away from team leaders to instructional facilitators? And is there a cost difference between them?
The team leaders did not have as high a stipend, and their list of responsibility included things like coordinating field trips, and newsletters, and communication, a lot of managerial tasks. The instructional facilitators are focused more on the instructional pieces, supporting curriculum, and work relative to teaching and learning as opposed to the coordinating and managing of the day-to-day. Jason could probably speak a little bit more in detail to what team leaders did.
Oh, I think that's very accurate. With the teaming models in middle school, you have one person who's in charge, whether it be managerial skills, whether it be that's like the guy, any aspect of working in a team. And the shift from team leaders to instructional facilitators, I think, was to get the curriculum process moving. I mean, like when the lottery and money's no issue, we have both. But the reality is that it's like kind of one or the other, that middle contract period you can't just come up with, that's somewhat like.
Jason, why do we hear that teachers would have preferred to keep the team leaders?
I think we're still transitioning with the organizational piece in middle school because for as long as I've been here 7 years, we've had team leaders, and so everything runs through the team leaders. So I'd meeting with them as a managerial structure weekly, whether it be assigning lockers or getting budgets together. And so now at this point where a lot of the leadership tasks have been farmed out to different people, and I think we're still in transition making that work, but it's just not as clean as it was when there was just one person accountable for the entire team.
Is there a way to restore that, or
To restore what?
the team leaders, if they work so well?
I don't know if we want to pay for both team leaders and instructional facilitators. I think that would be.
The things that you said very best that the IF don't do now, you mentioned 3 or 4 things at the onset of your sentence there. Whoa. I don't know if you remember exactly what you said. I'm not trying to hold you to that. What were the duties that they were doing?
They, coordinated newsletters, they coordinated conference scheduling, field trips.
So is that the responsibility of somebody else now to do, or is that stuff just overlooked now?
No, all this stuff is still happening. I just say that the communication isn't as streamlined as it used to be. So, for example, I sent out an email this week about teachers need to get some very specific training about report card verification. Typically that would have gone through the team leaders that meet with 5 people, say, hey, schedule this with Chuck Warner and have it done within a week, and then it's done. But now it's like finding a member of each grade level is like, hey Sean, can you do me a favor? Could you take care of this for the 8th grade? And maybe probably could do this for 7th grade. Where the structure just isn't as clean.
And they're not getting stipends, and they're not getting stipends, the IFs are.
Right.
They're doing the extra little tasks here and there.
Right, I mean, but that's expected. I mean, people do extra things, and whether you look through, the new seat model, I know the domains of teaching. And so, right, everyone chips in a good amount.
Yes.
How were team leaders chosen and how were instructional facilitators chosen?
The team leaders were chosen by, they were requested, and every year I had really one natural leader of the team that requested the stipend. If I had more than more than one, I would have interviewed them to see who would be the best candidate. But it's usually fairly natural who the leader of the team is.
We kind of agree that that person was going.
Yes.
And how about the instructional facilitators, how were they chosen?
Well, the instructional facilitators, so there's a lot of work to do with that. So I think that at first there was a little uncertainty, like who wants to do it. So the positions were open for a little bit until we were working with Mary Beth, just identifying teachers who we think would do a good job really approaching them. Say like, you know.
So if somebody volunteered, they were qualified, they could do it as long as there was an opening. And then
Sure.
if there was no volunteer or qualified person for that, we would have to find somebody.
Right.
Thank you.
That won't be something they would just open up and put out basically for anybody who's interested. It would have to be somebody who would kind of come forward. Would that be something you would put out to see if anyone was interested?
Sure. Every year we put out the list of stipend positions, whether it be coaching soccer or math team, and the team leaders with IS would be part of that list. And then it's sent out to the entire faculty, and then they apply for it. More than one position, I would interview the different candidates for the position. And so in the case of like the team leader, it would have to be on that grade level, because really you're managing and doing everything for the team. The IFs are more like department heads, so if you think less department heads, that's really what we are. We have one for science, one for math, one for social studies.
Thanks.
So there's no longer, like, for all fourth grade teachers, a spokesman like there used to be.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So there's no longer, like, say, for all the fourth grade teachers, a spokesman, a team leader like there used to be. Now there instead is a spokesman for the language arts part of the fourth grade.
Yes.
Or an
That's right.
instructional facilitator.
Yes.
May I ask, I'm curious, what was the total cost allocated to funding the team leader program? What's
I
the
believe
price
the
of
team leaders earned about $2,700, and the instructional facilitators a little over $3,000.
So,
$3,900.
well, what would the total annual cost be to maintain the team leader program?
There were 5 team leaders, is that right, Jason, one for each grade level, so
I
5
think
times
there's
277,
And the Unified Arts team had a leader also.
Pardon?
The Unified Arts team had a leader
So it
also.
was 6. So if you want to do the math, I think it was something like $2,700 per team leader.
2,000.
But the other point of the cost of the instructional facilitators, there were no stipends paid at the elementary school as well. So that's increased it. There were no, the elementary staff had none of that.
And so we added positions at the elementary school. There were no team leaders, no instructional facilitators, so we kind of upgraded the team leader to IF, so the cost differential was the difference between 6 times 2,700 and 6 times 3,090. But the elementary, there was nothing in place for any kind of leadership role, yet those elementary teachers were stepping up and doing that work, and so the stipends are now paid to those teachers doing that work at the elementary school. And there's a language arts, math, science, social studies, special ed, and unified arts person.
This initiative, if I'm not mistaken, was brought to us by the superintendent, but was approved by this board to move from team leaders to instructional facilitators. I suspect, if I recall, and again, when you get to my age, sometimes the memory isn't quite what it used to be. But I do believe that we unanimously agreed with the transition and the change. So we have to go back and undo that action.
I think it was the previous
Yeah, but I
board
don't think it
members.
was this board that approved it.
That's
why
the
I-
question.
I didn't question it, I just asked for an explanation.
You know,
I'm just trying to explain that this board approved it. It's not just something that was done without board approval.
No, is it, is that what?
I have a question about world language, because I'm very confused. I want to say, Jason, you can help me with this. I want to say 4 years ago, we eliminated a world language position at the middle school.
That sounds accurate, because when we moved to the new middle school 6 years ago, that's when we put it in, and I think 2 years later it was eliminated.
And that was for grades 4 or 5?
we offered it a little different way. I had it in the 5-day exploratory for grades 4 and 5, and then it was also grade 6 for a quarter of the year, grade 7 for a half year, and 8th grade for the full year. And then when we eliminated one position, it just became one trimester for 7th grade and then a full year for 8th grade.
So we eliminated for those lower grades. And now what do we have? We were told at the time that it was really not giving us the impetus and the skills when the kids entered high school. And we eliminated a world language teacher.
Yeah, I don't remember that being the reason for it being
Well,
eliminated.
what do we have now?
Right now, we have that 6th grade has a choice between French and Spanish for a trimester. 7th grade gets a full year, and 8th grade gets a full year.
And are we looking to increase that at all down the line?
I would love to. I mean, this is one again, I hope that I win one of the $1 billion lotteries and I can get world language all the way down to kindergarten. But the reality is that it's expensive to do that. And it would be great for us to look at that down the line. I would love that.
And have we ever done any research or collected any data from grade 9 world language teachers to see how our kids are doing when they enter those programs in grade 9?
Well, I know that communication this year is better than ever, and they're also looking to do common assessments. And so, is there research? I don't think so, but I think the communication is better than ever, and I think common assessments will tell us how the 8th grade students are performing now.
It's just hard when you work hard to get something in, and then it's taken out, and then something is put back in again. Your credibility in the community is just non-existent when you do something like that. And it just gets very, very confusing when a program is here and then it's gone and then it's back again. Well, I'm going to say it, but I don't want to talk about it. It's like when we worked really hard as a community to convince parents that 4th and 5th graders should be in our new middle school. And to talk about turning that around now, people shake their head and say, what? Why would they do that when they convinced us 6 years ago to put them in the middle school? Now they're saying take them out. That kind of reasoning leaves a lot of question marks in people's minds.
If I can, since I'm here representing the Finance Committee, I think a word was left out when we talk about in the absence of board goals. I think Tracy and the Finance Committee was talking about in the absence of board's budgetary goals. And I think that's the kind of conversation we as a board need to have in advance of the budget season, probably in August. We ought to be looking at things like that. We ought to be seeking input, having some kind of a public forum and say, what would you like to see? And get some kind of consistency and then stay behind it.
And I can agree with
I was the one who last year advocated for using the resource we had to put in the 6th grade language teacher. I do believe that it is critical when you look at language instruction, not just in East Haddam, but in Connecticut and around the country and elsewhere. But the earlier you start, the earlier it is for students to master a second language. And in this world today, we need to do that. But that's what I think she's talking about. In the absence of board budgetary goals, a board budgetary long-range plan, not the facilities, which I think we do a fabulous job on, but looking at instruction and curriculum over a period of time. I think that's what she was referring to there. She simply missed those two words.
Point well taken. I hear that. That makes a big difference.
Can you clarify the question from Shawty you had last time on psychological services? Last year, the budget was $2217, and we go through in 2217. We go through and allocate grants to the budget so the board understands how much money's coming in. And I had allocated to one line item that David was not comfortable with, so it was an adjustment in conjunction with the grant terms. So last year the budget was $2217. We just allocated a grant last year to it, and you can see how it's tracking. It was a reallocation, so there's no reduction. If I can send the board the special education budget from last year, and you can see the same amount being reduced, but David was not comfortable with where I had allocated and had asked me to use it. So it's really unchanged. I was able to go through all the fields.
Yeah.
Here's a finance question. Out of the 700,000, 138 increase, how much is contractual obligation? So,
Budget right now. And you have one of the sheets you were given with the multi-year budget detail, which is helpful. So if you look at the top, salary for request is 9,620, 9,620,000, which is an increase based on what the committee has presented you of 200,000 in roughly 200,000 in salaries. And benefits is about 80,000 based on the staffing structure that has been presented.
and then what about oil, electricity?
Electricity, we're realizing savings on. This is where this is rather helpful if you look at this. If you go to the back side, utilities and communications, we could see that in '09, we spent $348,000 for electricity, and last year we spent $315,000 because of the new contract we signed. So if you track across for utilities and certain items, we are really holding on those expenses. The budget for 2014-15 for transportation, which is at the top, is 1.1 million and almost 1.2, which was the budget in 08-09. So on one of those charts that we gave you, you really can see most of the other expenses are tracking. You know, if you look at these, they're all tracking. In some instances have reduced. But benefits and salaries, as it stands with the staffing,